I was terrified of money, so even though I was really great at making it, I never looked at it. I just gave it to my spouse at the time, and I just went out and got the next check. So that's the first mistake, that if you're afraid of the money and you're not looking at it.
Welcome to the Raw and Real podcast. Are you dreaming of changing your life through opening a business, or are you curious what obstacles entrepreneurs had to overcome on their journey? Then you're in the right place. My name is Agnes and I'm your host. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Raw and Real. Today's guest on the show is Krisstina Wise. Krisstina is a real estate mogul, millionaire coach, and creator of several multi-million-dollar businesses, including Good Life Luxury, The Paperless Agent, and most recently, Wealthy Wealthy. She's also an international speaker and the award-winning author of the Amazon best-selling Falling for Money, a romance novel for your bank account. Named one of the 100 most influential real estate leaders in the country, she has been featured in USA Today as well as by Apple, Contactually, and Evernote for creative leadership with emerging technologies. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. It's fun to be here.
Uh, I know that you're very passionate about understanding everything connected to money. So I'm also very curious, like at what point did you become interested in the science of making money? Was it already for you as a kid, or did that come at some point in your career?
That I love that question. And no, it was certainly intentional later in life. My childhood, I was actually very poor as a child. And then I went to college, actually got an accounting and finance degree, 2 degrees, because I was very interested in money because I wanted to create a different life for myself than I grew up. And then after college, I found myself in real estate. And the great thing about real estate in the States is that there's no real ceiling to your income. So I very quickly, because of my work ethic and just driven and wanted to make a lot of money, I did. But what happened is after about 7 years of being a very high income earner and being a top salesperson in my city, I found myself divorced, a single mom of two small kids, and completely broke. And I mean broke in a sense that I had $0 in my bank account, and I had $150,000 worth of tax liens and credit card debts and different things I wasn't even aware that I had. So that I was in financial crisis and despair. I mean, I didn't know how I was going to feed my children. And I mean, I'm not joking. The only way we survived for like that 6 months after everything came crumbling down was that colleagues for work, like, they pitched in, they paid the light bills for 6 months, they dropped off furniture and clothing and blankets and sheets and towels, and, it was very nice of my peers and colleagues. I didn't ask, they did that because they got, pretty good hunch of what was going on, but they did it out of kindness, and, we wouldn't have made it if it weren't for that type of generosity. At the same time, I felt disgusting, like I had to take charity to feed my children. I had to take this stuff to be able to put food on the table. And I didn't understand how I got there. Like, how was it that I'd earned hundreds of thousands of dollars? I was top in my city, great at sales. How was it that I earned all that money and was destitute? I mean, it was a head scratcher for me. I didn't understand it. Now it's obvious, but back then in the middle of it, I just couldn't make sense. Like, how did I wind up here? I'd worked so hard to not duplicate my childhood for my children. So that just once I got over my pity party and just kind of faced that financial despair and that existential despair right in the face, I made it my personal mission to learn money, to understand that there were wealthy people that weren't in this situation. There had to be an art and science to this. And you said the word science, but mostly there had to be a science, and it was different that I learned in accounting school. My degree didn't keep me from reaching this terrible financial position. So that became the beginning of learning money as a skill, as a life skill, and understanding through that decade of dedicated, intentional, rigorous learning and education and everything. I mean, I've read hundreds and hundreds of books. I mean, I spent tens of thousands of dollars investing in this. And, it took a little while, but what I learned through all of that I think is relevant to everybody is that money is not obvious. What's obvious is that we can make it, we can deposit into our account, and we can spend it. Beyond that, there's nothing obvious about money, meaning it's a learned skill, an acquired skill. And understanding there's a difference between income, like I had income, I made a lot of money, but it's categorically different than wealth, which I had none. I had negative wealth. So it's understanding mostly like there are these two components that of money that we have to focus on, and we have to understand these laws and operations mechanics of money if we wish to grow wealth and be financially stable, secure, and ultimately successful.
Like you mentioned, that there's a difference between income and wealth, right? Can you share with us what that exactly is?
Yeah, I would love to. And I want to say too that learning money, it doesn't matter how much money you make. So the way I teach money and the principles, it's equal to those just starting out in business and just the beginning of their business and making money, and those that make a lot of money. Like the a lot of people like myself made a lot of money but still don't know anything about wealth. So, and even my children who are 24 and 25, they're already building wealth at a young age, even though their incomes are very modest, but they understand it. So first of all, it's really to understand that money is a mindset and a skill set. So it's these two equal parts that if your mindset is screwed up about money, you're never going to have wealth. Again, you'll sabotage it even if you make a lot of it. So it's understanding what are the mindsets of money. And then the skill set is really how you manage your cash and how the skill of money and how you use your income to build wealth. So to answer your question, there's really these three compartments of money. And that once we learn these, now we can move and do things with our money that when it's invisible, we can't do. So when we're entrepreneurs or small business owners, that's usually who I work with. It's applicable to everyone. But income is the money you make in your business. Now, I don't mean money you make from selling things. I mean money you make from profit. Like after it's all said and done, it's how much money you pay yourself after all the expenses. So if you bring in $100,000 worth of sales and you spend $50,000 in business expenses, you made $50,000 that year, or any X factor of that. So that's your income. That income would be $50,000 from your brand new business. Brand new business, that's probably an exciting year. Now, the second place is what do we do with that $50,000? That's business profit. That's our household income. So we move that money out of our business and we put it into our household. And now we pay our bills. But if all of our bills is 100% of that income, or more through debt and credit cards, then that means we're creating negative wealth, not positive wealth. So every time we have a personal debt, we're creating negative wealth. And every time we're creating negative wealth through debt, personal debt, that means we're never going to reach wealth. We're never going to be a millionaire. We're never going to have financial freedom, security, and stability. We're robbing ourselves from that opportunity. So what that means is the way we take our income and convert it to wealth is that we use time over time, is that we take a percentage or portion of our income from the very beginning and we allocate that towards our future self's wealth. And that's through investing. So we have these three categories of money that's business profit, household income, and net worth or balance sheet portfolio wealth. And so these all have three very distinct distinctions, and we need to be focused on all three. So even like my children who are earlier in their career, they've learned to live off not 100% or more of what they make, but some portion less so that at their young age, they're already building wealth. My kids have more of a net worth than many adults, much older than them, even though they have a very modest income. So again, so it's a mindset, it's a skill set, understanding that there's only one way to win the money game, and you have to know what that is. And then it's a lifestyle. It's really your relationship and how you manage your cash flow, and really how you're moving towards this life architecture plan to make sure that you're always working, to increase your income, because more income means a better lifestyle, and it means we can faster get to what I call our freedom number, which is that wealth number that allows us to live off of our wealth and not live off of our income.
So you mentioned that your kids already they don't have a huge amount of money coming in, but they take that to build wealth, right? So can you give us an example of what exactly it is that they're doing, and for, someone who is in the early stages of their career, how to best invest their money?
Yeah, of course. Well, there's 10 billion ways to invest your money. And so that's another myth. And so one myth I want to bust, I hope I just did, is that there's this fundamental belief that the answer to all of my money problems is to make more money. And so we're always in the chase of making more money. And that chase never goes away, because the more money we make, the more money we spend. And that's the hamster wheel. That's the rat race that people get stuck in their entire careers, thinking one day they'll get out of it. But that one day is always some far away day. So that's myth number one. Myth number two is that please tell me how to invest so that I can build wealth, as though there's only like one way to do it. Now, there's the antiquated retirement method that's based on the Revolution. And, you put so much money in the stock market and you let that grow over 40 years. And if you have 40 years, that might work. But we're living a long time these days, and there's all sorts of other financial numbers that don't work with that strategy. So the truth is that it doesn't matter where we invest. Investing is a personal decision. And I'm a big real estate investor, for example, but I love real estate. But is real estate for everyone? Hell no. Like, do you know the stuff I've had to do in 2020 when COVID hit and my real estate fell apart and my tenants quit paying and I had to move cash around, and I'm actually living in a one of my investment properties right now as I'm selling others and getting things and putting money into this one to get it back on the market and do this. And so I just moved in like 2 days ago. This isn't Not everybody's cut out for this. But, it's going to be very lucrative and profitable in the long run. Man, I had to go into the red to get to a nice black and sell things and go from a long-term strategy to some short-term strategies. So my point is that this is what I do, but not everyone would just choose to move into a place to get all their numbers to work. So that's the myth, is that tell me how to invest and then I'll start investing. The truth is that when we understand money, we're always building our investment bucket. Then based on the money that we have earmarked designated to invest, and we're very serious about that, the investments will always come to you when you have the money there. It's just an unwritten law that nobody understands until they have the money, and then there's always somewhere to invest. Nobody ever needs to tell you where to invest when you have the money. It's only people that don't have the money that are asking where to invest, because they think that's the way to get to the money when they haven't learned how money works first. So to answer your question, let's say, for example, I'll just give a specific example how things just pop up when you have the money. So I teach the concept is that you're always putting money into your investment bucket. So like my children do, for example. And then, even though it's a modest amount. Now with real estate, you need big chunks of money. And my daughter's a pretty good saver, and she'd been saving for quite some time. And so I'm doing a real estate development, and I put in a bunch of money. And I asked my daughter, I said, would you like to put any money in your investment bucket into this development? I mean, here's the numbers, here's the returns. It's about a 7-year play. Are you interested? And she put in 25,000 US of her own money. And that's pretty good for a 24-year-old, but she's been saving that money and it's earmarked towards investing. So she didn't go hunting for that. That money, that opportunity was dropped in her lap, for example. Now, the mom, she's got mom there, but this could have been anyone when she had the money. She wasn't out there like, "Oh my god, where do I invest for it? Where do I invest?" She was just waiting for the investment to show up. My son, for example, who's 25, that he I am an Airbnb host, and part of being an Airbnb host is we got an opportunity to participate in Airbnb's IPO. And so I maxed out the amount that I could invest in the Airbnb IPO, which was a very modest amount. But I let my son know, it's like, you don't get the IPO price, but you may want to, if you have any money, since you have a smaller amount saved right now in your investment bucket, you might want to put a little bit or look into Airbnb to see if this is something you're interested in. I think it's a good buy, but you need to make a decision on your own. So he looked at all that and looked at it, and he only had a fraction of what my daughter put, but he put a few $1,000s into Airbnb to have a little bit of the stock, and a little amount. I mean, it's only going to grow a certain amount as opposed to bigger amount. It's that same X factors can turn into a lot more. But again, he didn't have to think like, oh my God, where do I go put the money? The opportunity came to him. And both of these examples just happened in the last few months. One just happened like last week. So I tell those stories, hopefully it's not over story, but I tell these stories just to try to break people out of this belief like, where should I invest? Where should I invest? Where should I invest? That's not the right question. The question is how much money of how much what percentage and how much of my income do I choose to put in an investment bucket so that I have the money to invest when that opportunity lands.
And in your experience, so what do you think is the best percentage of your income to invest, on a yearly basis?
Yeah, well, the numbers, it's a personal thing. The younger you are, the less the lower the percentage. So if my children start at like 5 to 10% of what they make, they've got lots of time to fill that, and they can focus on increasing their income, and when it gets to a certain amount, then they can buy assets and dump it. But they've got lots of time to play because they're starting so young. The kind of the moral of that story is the younger you start, the better. Now, if you're twice their age and you haven't started, 5 to 10% is not going to be enough because you have a very short horizon of time where that money needs to grow and start doing what's called like a hockey stick. Because how you build wealth, it's all compounding. You can't save or earn your way to wealth. You can only compound your way to wealth. That's why time is money when we're talking about wealth, and that you don't waste time when it comes to wealth. You want all that time on your side. I started, much later than my kids, so I had to work a lot harder, and I had to cut off, take out a lot more of my month to month lifestyle so that I could kind of catch up, so to speak, where my kids have more than a decade on me from where they started. So that a decade is a lot of time. That money goes really fast over that period of time. So the number of decades you have, the richer you can be, because the more time that you have for that, those compounding numbers to make sense. And just put some money into a compounding calculator. It's pretty simple to see how time works for wealth creation. And again, you don't waste time. But kind of the rule of thumb is that if you're kind of in your 20s and early 30s, I would suggest a minimum of 10% off the top, pre-tax, goes straight into your investment bucket. And then, but then to keep wanting to grow that. The real rule of thumb is that if you can take 20% off the top and live off 80%, then and just use that as a lifestyle, that's a really healthy percentage. You're taking, basically 1/5 of everything you make, and you're putting it towards your future self. So I like that number. And then ultimately, the reason why it's personal is that I wanted to hit my number as quickly as possible. So I really lived off of about 50 or 60% of what I made. And then when I was when I really was, there was a certain period of time there, like 5 years, where I just wanted to build that snowball as much as I could. I was living off 50% of my income and investing 50% off the type with some pretty top incomes. And so versus just increase even though my income had like tripled during that course of 5 years, I was still just living off 50% of that, which means I had a little bit of increase in my, kind of my month to month or annual lifestyle experience. But I just used that money to really grow that net worth egg. And once I had that really good snowball, then that snowball can continue to, gather snow as it goes down the hill. But you need a really good sized snowball to start off. So again, but that was a personal decision. I teach something called lifestyle architecture and how much money is enough. You have to know your numbers. That's another rule of thumb. If you're in business and you don't know your numbers, or you say you want to be wealthy or millionaire, and you don't know your numbers, you're just wealth is not accidental. Everybody wins the lottery. I mean, some people win the lottery. There's always an exception to the rule. But in general, for the rest of us, if we're not the exception, we're the rule. Wealth is not accidental. It's intentional. So we know our numbers, we have a plan for getting there. This is our lifestyle based on, what we want to achieve for ourselves. So I was doing 50% for a while. So do you see what I'm saying? That again, there's some rule of thumbs and some guidelines, but money is a very personal game. It's a very personal relationship. It's how much money and my financial desires and dreams are very different than yours, and that's okay. And we have to, and the way to build wealth is we have to get out of the rat race. We have to quit keeping up with the Joneses. We have to give a flip what other people think of us. Because when you're in the wealth building game, you're not buying all the same shit that everybody else is buying. You're not doing some of the same things. It doesn't mean I don't promote living off rice and beans either. I want you to live a good life, but it looks different than your friends and peers that are kind of making in the same income level. But you kind of laugh your way in the future when they're still on that treadmill and still in the rat race, and you've got the security, you've got the nest egg, you've got these things going. Then it's like, who's laughing? So, but again, hopefully, with if there's listening in, it's just understand there is a real science to this, and it's not difficult, but it has to be learned.
Because you mentioned as well again that it's a science. So what do you think is most important for someone to understand when it comes to like the laws and rules about it?
Yeah, just I think the best thing to understand is that there are laws and rules. And if you don't know them, you better get to studying them. That's what I do is I have a money school that people can go to school. So we don't learn money as a life school in school or college or university. And it's one of the most important things. We need money our entire lives, yet we're not taught. So we have to teach ourselves. If not, we're going to self-sabotage without knowing it with the best intentions. So that's just the takeaway is that if you don't understand money, you have a fear of it, you abdicate it, your relationship isn't healthy, your narrative is off, you avoid it, whatever those things. If you don't know how to build it, you're not in the practice of building it, you don't have this really great relationship and confidence with it, that's the sign that there's something to learn. But once you learn it, it's a skill set that nobody can ever take it away from you. So you can lose your money, but you can't lose what you know. So even, know, COVID happens and money disappears, you know what to do to make it all back again. You understand how the operations work.
And looking back, let's say 20 years ago, what were some of the beliefs that you had about money that were holding you back that you also, got into this terrible situation?
Yeah, there were so many that I love that question. I'm not sure that's ever been asked of me before. The one was I was terrified of money. So even though I was really great at making it, I never looked at it. I just gave it to my spouse at the time and I just went out and got the next check. So that's the first mistake that if you're afraid of the money and you're not looking at it and you're giving it to a partner to manage or a financial planner, advisor to manage, that's going to most likely not turn out very well. But that's a sign. So big thing is I just abdicated. I'm great at making it. I thought as long as I made it, I'd be fine. So that's the second thing is a belief that as long as I'm great at making a lot of money, my money situation is going to be great. Nope, that doesn't work. Another one is, my relationship. Really had a poor person's mindset because I was raised that way. So, that mindset really kept me just where I spent all of my money because I wanted to buy being good enough. And so I spent all of my money and then some to say, look at me, look at me. So because I didn't have money growing up, I wanted money as an adult. So I bought everything, every label, the right emblem on the cars, lived in the right neighborhood. I did everything and I overspent because I wanted to buy. I wanted people to look at me differently. So that was a big mistake. I mean, I didn't know I was doing that, but that caused me to overspend. And and then, yeah, I mean, just really flawed money beliefs. I just had a very unhealthy relationship with money. And just another thing was lack of knowledge. I just didn't know what I didn't know. Again, just kind of stuck in that same mentality, like if I just make more money, everything will work out. And mostly it's just lack of knowledge. And that's the beauty is once I started studying money, I'm like, oh my God, now that I know this changes everything. Like, why doesn't everybody know this? Why isn't this taught in school?
What do you think is then a good and healthy relationship with money? Because, like you mentioned, for example, that you were putting it away and giving it to your spouse and not really knowing your numbers. So, what should someone do to become better at it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the relationship piece. So there's a few different pieces. One is the relationship with money. Something that I have all my students do in the money school is to write a story to money and express how you really feel. And it can be something like, I hate you. Like, where are you when I need you? And why do I need you? Whatever that is, it's just very cathartic to really just be truthful. Just nobody will ever read it. It's just between you and your money and see and just let it flow and see what comes out. And some of my students share those with me, and it's amazing some of these things that come out that people don't even realize they felt towards this money thing. And then to
Wow, yeah.
rewrite that, and I called that my what kind of the behind my book that's called Falling for Money. And it's like to create a romantic love affair with your money is the whole idea. So now rewrite the money narrative where it sounds like something that I love you, I appreciate you, you do so much good for me. Man, when I've messed things up, so I want to get better. I'm sorry I've taken you for granted. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm sorry that I've neglected you and not spent time with you because I was afraid, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to give you all the attention and love and honor and respect that you deserve, because when I do that, you always take care of me. There's always the money always shows up. And so it's just to rewrite that story, because but by virtue of seeing what we feel at the beginning, then we're able to rewrite it. So that's really the relationship. And like anything, let's say somebody that has anorexia or bulimia, they don't have a healthy relationship with their body. There's a psychology to it. So those that want to get healthy and not be anorexic or bulimic, they have to change their mindset. They have to change their relationship with their body. They have to get to love themselves. And that's a journey in and of its own, much more difficult than it is with money. But the same thing, it's very similar. If we have an unhealthy relationship with money, it's going to be financial disease. It's going to be diseased in some way. It's going to negatively affect our life in all these different categories. And so that's just it. It's just we want to do the work to really where that it's a healthy relationship, that money's good, money in my hands is good, and I can do great things with it, and it takes care of me and allows me to be healthy and help other people and to live a good life and to take care of my children. And man, money is just such a good thing, and I'd rather it be in my hands of somebody that's not selfish or greedy or these things. I'm going to do great work with money. I'd rather it be in my hands as opposed to maybe other people's hands that might not be such a good steward and do such good things with it. So that's the first piece, is to really work on that relationship. And you want it just to be very loving and kind and compassionate, just like a love romance. Like if you are in a love romance and you neglect your partner, take them for granted, don't spend any time, don't give them attention or her attention, that person's not going to stick around for long. Or if they do, it's going to be very dysfunctional and for the wrong reasons. So we want that, if I called in the book, even money is the third lover in a way, because if we can adopt that same kind of relationship with it, to love, honor, and cherish, be grateful, spend time, give attention, intention, money does all sorts of magic when we're in the dance with it in a healthy way. Then the mindset piece that many times we have to work on is really to move from what the mindset piece is, the fear versus abundance, scarcity versus abundance. And when we can fool ourselves by telling ourselves one thing, really underneath it all, really believing something else. And so we really have to connect with the universal abundance that's available to us. And abundance just means plenty. There's no scarcity. The only scarcity is the scarcity of our own mind. It's only the scarcity we create for ourselves. The universe has no scarcity when it comes to money, meaning That's why some people have billions of dollars, right? Because there's plenty out there. We can have whatever our amount is, that we create for ourselves, but we create it. But it just means that if we think we can't, or we think that there's scarcity, or we believe something underneath that if I have it, you can't have it, or if you have it, I can't have it, that means it's a scarcity mentality. There's also the fear of losing it, the fear of having it, the fear of what other people think. That there's all sorts of really deep-seated fears that are built in. So with the mindset piece, and so that's another factor of this. We want to really work on the mindset. We're very connected. Like there's plenty out there, and I just need to do my work and my purpose and my creation to bring in and to create as much money as I deem is my enough that works for me, for my life, and what's important to me. I don't need that. I just need what I want for my dreams and desires. But you have to know those numbers. And so the third component is you have to know your numbers. It's a universal principle that there's no nebulous with the universe. It feels elusive and nebulous because it's so big and so much out from under understanding. But the universe only delivers on complete specificity when we know with complete clarity what we want. And we're very intentional about that. And we call in those intentions. So you can't be vague. You can't just say, I want a lot, or I want more, or I need this. Or I mean, it's complete specificity. So that's knowing the numbers, like how much money is enough, how much money you're going to call in, why that amount? Did you just pull it out from the sky, or did you determine that amount intentionally because that's your number with meaning and purpose and in universal connectivity? Then the universe is like, gotcha, I'm going to help deliver that, and you do your work and I'll do my work because we're very connected here and aligned. And then the final piece, really, like I said, is the skill set. It's like, okay, those are more of the kind of mindset, relationship, and metaphysical pieces. But money is very physical. It is, I mean, we exchange it. It's real. We can see it on our bank account. It's black and white. Like there's nothing elusive between seeing how much exact money is in our bank account. That's as real as it gets. It's like standing on a scale. You can tell yourself, in your mind, like, hey, I weigh 105, but you stand on the scale and it says it's 155, right? So the scale doesn't lie, like our bank account doesn't lie. So there's truth. And so truth that can be proven right here is a reality that is very black and white. So money is a good mirror and reflection to call us on our bullshit and call us on our truth, because we can pretend to others, but we can't pretend to ourselves because the proof is right there. So that's just it, is that because it's black and white, there is a science to it. The other stuff is the art that I talked about, but you have to understand the distinctions. What's the difference between money, income, and wealth? What's the difference between savings and investing? What's the difference between cash and capital? What's the difference, between an asset and a liability? What's the difference between a P&L and a balance sheet? And being able to like name these off just like we can say the alphabet and do some pretty basic arithmetic. So you need to know 3 times 4 is 12. You need to know certain things, distinctions with money, and when you know these things, it's very simple to learn, but it changes what I call the trajectory of where you're headed, where your financial future is headed.
And what kind of resources helped you along your journey the most when it comes to getting to know everything about money and understanding it more?
Well, with anything, if we want to get good at something, we need to first make it a focus of study, and then find, the books or the teachers and the mentors or coaches or whatever this, that we believe can help us, along our journey and guide us and lead us and teach us. We all need teachers. And so I'm, so for example, in 2021, I'm interested, it's kind of all the rage right now, but I'll just give a specific example that I'm interested in NLP. And so, it's been kind of on the radar for a while. A lot of people have been talking about NLP, and I know a lot of people who have done it. And, but I thought, all right, for 2021, I'm just curious about it, and I'm going to make this my area of study unless I decide not to. Maybe I get into it and I don't like it, but right now, so I did a lot of research. I've read some books, I've done some different things, but I hired a coach, and I hired a personal coach to really guide me along this, because I know myself, I'm not going to do it on my own. I can do a little bit on my own, but So I hired a personal coach. And in fact, I mean, we're just scheduling right now, right before this call, we're scheduling to get the time. How much is he going to charge me? What time are we going to get on the calendar? He's given me this protocol of what this is going to look like that's a little bit custom to me. And that's going to be my thing. And, that's my investment in myself and my learning for 2021. And it's this one thing that I'm focused on as new learning, as a new skill that I think can help me in all categories of life to some capacity. So that's what I did because it's a skill I want to learn. So that's why I say anytime, whatever skill it is, there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut. We have to do the work. Learning is a slow process. We need teachers, guides, and mentors. And we ourselves aren't, nobody that I know is so accountable that they can do these things by themselves alone, spending $0. I haven't found anybody that can do that yet. But when we're serious, I mean, I've spent between for myself, I mean, I've spent hundreds, I mean, I'm not joking or bullshitting. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in my learning, and lost hundreds of thousands of dollars of making mistakes during my learning, but I'm worth millions. So all of that was the investment that I made through cash out of my pocket, time out of my seat, and losses through, just not understanding and making stupid decisions, thinking I knew more than I did. But that was the investment that paid off to multi-million dollars on a net worth statement. I mean, and it can be seen. There's no BS there. But that's just it. But I was willing to do whatever I could do because I wanted the outcome, which was wealth and passive income and these different things. Was there any guarantee that I was going to get there? No, maybe I didn't have what it took or something, but I was going to do everything I could do. And then I studied under who I found to be the masters. And those masters actually helped me master this thing called money. But I studied under the master to become a master. That's how it works with the lineage of martial arts, for example. You start as a white belt and you study under like a third degree black belt, then you keep changing your belts over time. You don't go from a white belt to a third degree black belt within a month or 1 month or 1 year. You do it over time. So it just depends. What are these life categories that's worth spending the time and money to learn as a life skill that we want to master? And I just decided that money was one of them. And so I encourage others to do the same, and especially women. Women need to own their financial power and understand it and be a game player when it comes to money. And I don't mean you have to be on Wall Street, I mean of your own wallet, of your own financial ambitions and dreams and desires. You're the creator. We're sovereign, independent beings. And that I teach, my business is called, one of my businesses is called it's called Sovereignty Academy, and it's teaching us to how to be sovereign in our minds and in our wallets financially as a skill set and a mindset. So women need to desire to be financially sovereign, financially independent, financially powerful. And that can be whatever number is your financial sovereign number. It's up to each of us to determine how much that is, and then we go about figuring out how to get there.
Do you still have a last key takeaway, a personal insight that helped you grow personally you would still like to share?
I think the only thing is that if I look back on my successes and failures, is especially in the day and age we're in, we have to have mentors and coaches. We have to have desire, initiative to step up and make life happen and be the creator and doer of our life. And that comes with passion. It's putting a stake in the ground, and I'm going to learn this, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to have faith in the outcome, and I'm going to believe in me. But we need to quit talking about things or saying we're going to do something or just wishful thinking. And we have to be actors. We are the creators of our life. And that means we have to create, we have to act, we have to do, and we have to take full sovereignty and responsibility for where we are and where we want to be. And just determining as we're approaching this new year, what is that life category where we want to start, claiming stake?
And how can people get in touch with you?
Pretty easy. that I have a podcast. It's called Wealthy Wealthy. If people want to start listening to these conversations, so I always invite people to just look up my podcast. But ultimately, I have a lot of free downloads. I have 3 free downloads that you can just go to my name, which is Krisstina, Krisstina, a K and two S's.com. And it'll just point anyone listening to kind of a wealth of information of free downloads to get started on this work.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for making the time today. And for everyone who's watching or listening, we would love to hear from you. So let us know what your favorite insight was from today's conversation in the comments below the video.